Hello, how are you? My name is Eleanor Mirian, and what I'm about to share changed my life forever. On November 7th, 2023, I didn't just come close to death, I actually died. For 6 minutes and 47 seconds, my heart stopped, my consciousness left this world, and in that brief moment, I experienced something that defies any scientific explanation. What I witnessed on the other side forever changed my view of reality. Jesus Christ appeared before me and revealed shocking truths about the mark of the beast, truths I was instructed to share with the world. What I learned may deeply challenge your beliefs, but before I reveal these truths, I need you to understand how I was led to this crucial moment. Before that day, my life seemed to be perfectly on track. I was a successful executive in the financial sector, living in Boston, leading a lifestyle that many would consider privileged. I attended church on Sundays, helped with some social projects, and considered myself a good Christian. But looking back now, I realize my faith was superficial. I was simply going through the motions, fulfilling obligations, without truly living for Christ. That Tuesday morning started out like any other. I was on my way to an important meeting with a major investor, and my mind was full of strategies, charts, and numbers. It had rained earlier, leaving the asphalt slippery, but I wasn't concerned. After all, I drove those streets every day. But as I reached the intersection of Broadway and 7th Avenue, my life took an unexpected turn. The last thing I remember was a sudden flash, red headlights flooding my vision, and then the brutal impact. After that, silence. Trying to describe what happened next is a challenge. How do you put into words something that transcends what we know? How do you explain colors that don't exist in this world, or sensations that the human body was never meant to feel? But I will try, because what I saw and heard must be shared. The first thing I noticed was the total absence of pain. 1 second I was feeling the brutal impact of the accident, and the next, everything was weightlessness. It was as if I had been freed from a burden I didn't even know I was carrying. Then I realized I was looking down and seeing my own body. I was floating above the scene of the accident, watching the paramedics work frantically to bring me back. Every detail was sharp, as if my vision had been expanded far beyond human limits. I saw the worried faces of the people around, heard the sirens in the distance, felt the desperation of the rescuers, but I didn't feel fear or anguish. On the contrary, a deep, indescribable peace enveloped me, and then everything changed. The scene before me began to fade, as if the physical world was slowly dissolving. At the same time, I felt a force pulling me towards something greater, a presence so intense that it seemed to fill every part of my being. Then I saw the light. But it wasn't just any light. It vibrated, pulsed with something alive, something holy. It wasn't just brightness. It was knowledge. It was love. It was power. As I drew closer, a sound began to fill everything around me. Thousands of voices singing in perfect harmony, in languages I recognized and others I had never heard before. But somehow I understood every word. It was as if that melody spoke directly to my soul. And then I saw him. Jesus Christ was standing before me. His presence wasn't just visible, it was overwhelming, but not in a frightening way. It was like standing before something infinitely powerful, but at the same time, radiating such a deep love that I felt completely seen, known, and accepted. He looked at me, and when he spoke, his words resonated not just in my ears, but within me. "Eleanor," he said, and in that instant, I knew everything was about to change forever. "There are things you need to see," he continued, his voice permeating every part of my truths that must be shared. In the next moment, it was as if my mind had been opened to something much greater. I didn't just see images, I lived the revelations. It was like I was inside each scene, experiencing everything directly, without the limitations of human senses. Jesus showed me the near future, and what I saw was both terrifying and enlightening. The first vision took me to an apparently modern and efficient world, where people were accepting, without question, a revolutionary new technology. Small devices implanted in their hands and foreheads were presented as the ultimate advancement, a solution for identity, security, financial access, and even health, an inevitable step forward for human progress. But then Jesus revealed the hidden truth behind this innovation. "Watch closely," he said, "for this is how the deception will come." The scene changed. Now, I saw how it would begin subtly. First, the implant would be optional, a practical alternative for those who wanted more convenience. Then it would become highly recommended. Afterward, it would be necessary for jobs, services, and banking transactions. And before people realized it, those who refused would be completely excluded from society. What shocked me the most was how sneaky it all was. There wouldn't be a dramatic announcement saying, "Here comes the mark of the beast." On the contrary, people would willingly accept it, convinced that it was just another innovation, just another convenience in modern life. As I watched, I felt a tightening in my chest. People who had studied prophecy all their lives were being deceived. I saw sincere Christians who had discussed the mark of the beast for years, accepting this new technology without hesitation. They expected something obvious, something clearly evil, but the deception came wrapped in progress, security, and convenience. Tell them, Jesus spoke firmly, that the mark will not come as they expect. It will not come with threats or immediate impositions. It will come as a gift, as the solution everyone desires. The vision shifted again. Now I saw how the system would function in practice. Initially, those who refused would be considered outdated or conspiracy theorists. Then, they would begin to face difficulties in working, buying, and selling. And then, when the system was fully implemented, it would become mandatory. They must be prepared, Jesus said, and they must start now. Next, Jesus showed me the faithful communities who had chosen not to give in to the pressure of the system. Unlike what I expected, they were not living in fear, but with faith and determination. They had created alternative ways to survive, sharing resources, helping each other, and living independently of the system that rejected them. My children need to understand, Jesus said, that preparation should not be motivated by fear, but by wisdom. They must not just run away from what is coming, but build something new. He revealed specific details about how this preparation should unfold. First, the system would start as a security measure, promoted as the ultimate solution to fraud and financial crimes. Then, it would be presented as a way to protect children and the elderly, ensuring they never went missing or were kidnapped. Later, it would claim to help combat human trafficking and illegal immigration, making it mandatory for certain categories of citizens. Finally, it would become the only way to access basic services, such as healthcare, transportation, and food. But the real danger, Jesus emphasized, is not in the device itself, but in what it represents, a choice between trusting in man or trusting in God. As Jesus showed me these revelations, I began to understand just how sneaky this system would be. It wouldn't come with a direct command to deny the faith. On the contrary, even respected religious leaders would support it. I saw pastors and spiritual figures telling their congregations, "This cannot be the mark of the beast, because it doesn't require you to deny Christ." They would convince their followers that it was just a tool, something neutral, something that could be used for good. But Jesus made me see the truth. He explained that the mark wouldn't be about a visible symbol, but about a spiritual decision. Accepting this system would represent placing complete trust in man, in technology, and in worldly control, instead of trusting in God. I saw thousands of people willingly accepting it, unaware of what they were truly choosing, but I also saw others resisting, even in the face of hardship. Some faced persecution, while others were sustained by miraculous provisions, like manna in the desert. Tell them, Jesus said with love and firmness, that they should not be deceived by smooth words and empty promises. When this moment comes, it will be a choice between trusting the Father or surrendering to the world's system. Then Jesus showed me the signs that would precede the arrival of this system. Although he didn't reveal specific dates, he made it clear that there would be events that would serve as warnings for those who were paying attention. Among these signs, I saw a global economic crisis that would make digital currency not just convenient, but necessary. Increasing natural disasters that would lead governments to justify large-scale monitoring to protect people. A growing push for global unity, where any resistance to these systems would be seen as selfishness or extremism. A revolutionary technological breakthrough that would be sold as the next great leap for humanity, making the adoption of the mark seem like the inevitable and natural next step. But what Jesus emphasized the most wasn't the fear of these events, but the preparation his followers needed to have before they happened. "My people need to be ready," he said, "not just physically, but spiritually. They need to learn to trust in me, more than in what they can see." As I absorbed everything I was seeing, Jesus continued to show me what the faithful needed to do to prepare. He wasn't talking about fear-based preparation, but about wisdom, faith, and unity. "They need to strengthen their fellowship with me," he said, "because true protection will not come from hiding places or human strategies, but from an unshakable faith." He then showed me specific steps that his followers should take. First, develop a deep relationship with God through prayer and sincere study of the scriptures. because the only way to recognize the deception would be through the truth. Create supportive communities among believers, where they could help each other when the system began to exclude them. Acquire practical skills, such as growing food, storing supplies, and taking care of health independently. Establish alternative forms of commerce and exchange, so as not to depend on the financial system controlled by the mark. Stay firm in faith, even under pressure, remembering that God sustained his people in the past and will do the same again. Do not be led by panic, Jesus warned, but also do not be negligent. Those who trust in me and prepare with wisdom will not be caught off guard. Then, Jesus showed me something even deeper and more impactful. What would happen spiritually to those who accepted the mark? At first, they wouldn't notice any change. They would continue living normally, convinced that they had just adopted a new technology. But over time, something subtle would begin to happen. I saw their hearts hardening. It was then that Jesus revealed something terrifying. Accepting the mark wasn't just a physical act, but an irreversible spiritual transformation. They will lose the ability to repent, he said with sadness. Not because I wouldn't forgive them, but because their hearts will no longer desire to return to me. It was as if they had crossed a line of no return, a choice that altered their very essence, making it impossible for them to see the truth again. And it was in that moment that my heart broke. But then, Jesus showed me something that brought hope. Despite the great darkness that would take over the world, an unprecedented revival would happen at the same time. I saw thousands of people spiritually awakening, realizing the truth, and choosing to follow Christ even in the face of persecution. The most surprising thing was that this movement would be led by many young people. I saw a generation rejecting the system, refusing to bow to the pressure, and seeking a true connection with God. They were not interested in empty religion, but in a genuine relationship with the Creator. My Spirit will be poured out on those who seek me, Jesus said. Even when the world seems lost, I will still be calling hearts to me. It was a powerful vision. While many would accept the mark and turn away from God, others would find strength to resist. I saw entire communities living by faith, sustained by miracles and divine provision. Tell them, Jesus instructed me, that this will be a time of radical decisions. There will be no more space for a lukewarm faith. They will have to choose between me and the world. But this choice would not be easy. Jesus showed me scenes of family members trying to convince each other to accept the mark, worried parents pleading for their children to not throw their lives away, friends distancing themselves, communities dividing. I saw employers making acceptance mandatory, banks refusing transactions from those not registered in the new system, people being expelled from their homes for not being able to pay without the mark. But despite everything, Jesus kept repeating the same promise: I will take care of mine. Then, he showed me how this would happen. Just as Elijah was fed by ravens in the desert, God would miraculously provide for those who remained faithful. The manna would fall again for his people. I saw places where the faithful gathered in secret, sharing resources, living simply but without fear. They weren't alone because God was with them. They need to understand, Jesus said, that trusting in me will be their only true security. Before my vision came to an end, Jesus revealed to me what the faithful must do to prepare. He wasn't just talking about physical preparation, but primarily spiritual and emotional preparation. The time to build unshakable faith is now, he said. Not during the storm, but before it arrives. Then, he showed me practical steps for those who wish to remain firm. Strengthen your prayer life and study of the scriptures, because the only way to recognize deception is through the truth. Create strong bonds with other believers, forming supportive communities, because no one will be able to face this alone. Learn to live more independently, mastering essential skills like growing food and basic health care. Develop alternative ways of communication and exchange, because depending on the system will make resistance almost impossible. Cultivate unshakable faith, learning to trust in God even when everything seems difficult. Do not fear, Jesus reassured me, for I will always be the refuge of those who trust in me. Then, Jesus showed me the eternal consequences of this choice. I saw people who accepted the mark, believing they were just adapting to progress, not realizing they were giving up something much greater. At first, everything seemed the same, but over time, something inside them began to change. They no longer felt the call of God. It was as if an invisible barrier had been raised between them and the truth. Their hearts, once sensitive to the touch of the Holy Spirit, became cold, hardened. Not because God rejected them, but because they had chosen to trust in the system, not in Him. Tell them, Jesus spoke with sadness, that there is no material good in this world that is worth the loss of their souls. But then, he showed me something even more painful: those who would realize too late. I saw people regretting bitterly, crying, calling for a second chance, but their consciences were darkened, and the desire to return to God simply no longer existed. It was at that moment that I understood. It wasn't just a chip, a technology, or a system. It was a covenant, a final choice about whom they would serve. Jesus looked at me one last time and said, "Tell them not to fear. I am near, and those who remain faithful will be with me in glory." It was at that moment I felt my spirit being pulled back. Suddenly, everything disappeared. The heavenly music faded, the light vanished, and I felt my body again. The next thing I realized was the frantic sound of medical equipment and the desperate voices of the team trying to revive me. I was back. The doctors told me that I had been clinically dead for almost 7 minutes, and by some miracle, my brain suffered no damage. But what they didn't know was that I would never be the same. Since that day, my mission has been to share this message, not to create fear, but to prepare those who still have time. Because the greatest trap of the mark will not be its technology, but its subtlety. It won't be imposed with threats, but offered as the perfect solution. It will be accepted by many who never imagined they would make that choice. But for those who remain faithful, God's provision will be real. He will sustain those who trust in Him, give strength to those who remain firm, and be with those who reject the system. And in the end, the victory will be His. The choice will be ours. When that day comes, may you be prepared to choose eternity with Christ, not temporary earthly comfort. I'm glad you've come this far. If you liked this video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell to not miss more content like this. May God bless you and keep you, and may you have an open heart for everything He has for you. See you in the next video.